It takes a lot to laugh, it takes a train to cry. Originally titled as Phantom Engineer, this track was worked on heavily by Dylan. Even worked on it with Tom Wilson before getting it right with Bob Johnston in late July. Confirming this was Dylan saying, "Nothing's finished. Exactly what shape it'll take has yet to be decided." While working on it, and as early as May that year, Eric Clapton was said to be taking part in that session. It's hard to confirm that, as Clapton says, "It was just a jam session. We did a lot of blues songs. He was sitting at the piano, and we just joined in." I will have to think he was there, as in 1999 at Madison Square Garden, they performed this song together, and it seems they have a sense of togetherness while playing it. But, with Mike Bloomfield at the helm while recording the master takes, Dylan taught him these new songs at his home in Woodstock, with Bloomfield saying, he was playing in weird keys, which he always does, all on the black keys of the piano. He wasn't wrong, as this song is in the key of A-flat, which requires 5 black keys. In its early takes, it's very fast and more rock and roll-like. You can hear this on the Bootleg series volumes 1 through 3. I'm glad they changed it to match the overall blues sound you now hear today on the record. In verse 1, we have the line, "Can't Buy a Thrill," which is the debut album name for Steely Dan in 1972. Much of the beginning was reworked multiple times. It used to be, "Don't the sun look good, baby, coming down through the trees," and "Don't the moon look good, going down over the sea," and a few other edits which I'll show. All of verse 2 highly references Alabama Woman Blues by Leroy Carr and Scrapper Blackwell, which Dylan takes a crack at in the freewheeling outtakes. In verse 3, we can pinpoint on what most people describe as sexual frustration. Personally, I dislike that description. Well, I want to be your lover, baby. I don't want to be your boss. Simply, Dylan wants to serve rather than being served. The harmonica is played in D-flat, which is the sub-dominant key of A-flat. Remember, that's the key of the song, which is common for harmonica playing and fits well with the blues style. But, for some reason, multiple sources cite the harmonica part as unusual, but I love it. From a Buick 6. The shortest song on the album, it gets right to the point immediately, referencing another 1930s blues song. This time, it's Milk Cow Blues. In the lines, "Well, she don't make me nervous, she don't talk too much," Dylan is referring to Sara, his first wife, who has always been known to be cool, calm, and collective. Personally, "I need a dump truck mama to unload my head" is my favorite. Mike Bloomfield plays more rhythm than lead in this one. The very common 1-4-5 chord progression is here. For the most part, Al Kooper's organ acts as the riffs. If you listen closely, the bass is a tad different in verse 1, then finds its way for the rest of the tune. Other than the title, I see no references to riding in a car. Maybe Dylan is suggesting that this is the best way to ride the highway. So maybe that's why he changed it from the working title of Lunatic Princess No. 3. Columbia accidentally put an alternate take on the US pressing, and it can also be found in the Japanese market. More Stephen King trivia. He has a novel called From a Buick 8. Dylan has only played the song twice in concert, a big contrast from Positively 4th Street, the other side of this single, which has been played over 350 times. And yes, Positively 4th Street is not on the album, no album for that matter. Just Dylan doing Dylan things. Ballad of a Thin Man. The last song before flipping the record over, Ballad of a Thin Man, really elevates this album. The title possibly comes from the 1934 novel or movie, The Thin Man. The piano starts and leads the whole song. It's bold. It has a descending tone. It's nasty, Al Kooper says. Dylan was the king of the nasty song at that time. The chorus is perfect. Something is happening here. Dylan is changing. Although the song is piano-based, Whatever Dylan does during this time is highly questioned and up for debate, but they don't know what it is. Mr. Jones, in my opinion, is just everyone against Dylan. The press, his Fairweather fans, anyone who begs for an answer on his material. He's almost taunting them. Something is happening here, and you don't know what it is. I absolutely love how sinister this song is, and Dylan almost breaks in the first verse. I love when he laughs on the master take. Dylan ties together the last verse with a quote in August saying, "He's a real person. You know him, but not by that name. I saw him come into the room one night, and he looked like a camel." He proceeded to put his eyes in his pocket. He asked somebody what was up with this guy. To their reply, he puts his nose on the ground. It's all there. It's a true story. Dylan telling us that Mr. Jones is just there to be there, with no real involvement or interest at all. It's possible the next line comes from American poet John Berryman's 77 Dream Songs, but all I could find matching was, "There ought to be a law." Certainly, this can be a common outcry versus someone. Berryman's passage was only released 1 year prior, and there's no telling if Dylan ever read it or not during those busy times. I think Dylan is most proud of this song, playing it over 1,200 times and still doing it to this day. He once explained to a crowd in Japan, "This is a song I wrote in response to people who ask questions all the time. You just get tired of that every once in a while. Gotta put somebody in their place." Then again, confirming it's not just one person, saying, "There were a lot of Mr. Joneses at that time. It was like, oh man, here's a thousandth Mr. Jones." A fun one to play on the piano, and you can too. I have a lesson on this. They'll end part 2 with part 3 looking at Queen Jane approximately, Highway 61 revisited, and Just Like Tom Thumb's Blues, along with wrapping up the album as a whole. Thank you for watching, and be sure to like and subscribe.